Hello there and welcome to a TechHub.training solution video. This is for the monthly challenge entitled Dream Job. And let me go ahead and be the first to congratulate you on receiving an offer of employment with Dunder Mifflin. As you see this contract here, like many contracts, it contains a lot of obligatory contractual language. The employee shall, the client agrees to, etc. This challenge required you to build a short Python script that can go through, identify instances where a single or multiple parties in the contract are identified to have some sort of obligation. To help you do that, I gave you a list of these contract words. There's about 50 here you can add from or take away from this as you feel necessary to build the best code possible. These are words like you shall, employee must. If you notice here, I went ahead and words that when they're singular end in Y or plural end in IES, I went ahead and dropped the Y. So this will catch, employee complies or you comply, etc. So let's go ahead and jump into my solution. No solution code is perfect. I encourage you in the actual challenge itself to, if you prefer to take my code rather than building your own code from scratch and try to make it better, I would love that. You can also try to get the code from anybody else who's commented in the comments below in TechHub.training in order to really build code that will identify the most possible. This isn't perfect, but I feel like it's a pretty good representation of a baseline for getting a program that can identify most of the language in contracts. I actually put this through my own employee agreement, and it was able to spit out most of the obligations or things that I agreed to do. Thankfully, I didn't have any unwanted surprises. But so jumping in, the first thing it asks you to do is to input the full file path to your contract. It will just give you an input box. You can copy and paste the location of your file, and then it will allow you, my code at least allows users to input a PDF, a Word doc, or just a text file, especially PDF and Word docs. I feel like these are pretty common formats to receive employment agreements in electronically. So I just went ahead and built mine to accept all of them. You didn't have to do that. So we'll get to this function here a little bit further down. But this little block of code just allows the user to input, like I said, PDF, Word doc, or text file. It will also allow the user to, if they haven't input a proper file path, it will go ahead and end the program for them. And then it asks them to input a list of the titles of all the parties that they want to identify. So for instance, in this contract, it's Dunder Mifflin and you. So they would just type those two words separated by commas. It splits them into a list. And then, so now we have a list of the two parties in this contract, and we have saved into a string variable the entire text of a contract. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use that function that I defined earlier to take that full text of the contract, and we're going to split it using regex into different sentences. So first of all, I go ahead and just replace anywhere that has extra white space with just a single space. That will just improve the readability of the contract. And then it goes ahead and splits up the contract based off of words that end in a period, exclamation point, or question mark. And also there are a few sentences in contracts that can end with some punctuation mark as well as an end quote. So that will go ahead and split it on the white space following those characters. Ignore case allows it to be either uppercase, lowercase, or mixed. And verbose is just an argument that allows you to kind of build your regex in multiple lines in Python. It's really helpful if you're building a more complex sentence or expression structure. So this function will return out a list of all the sentences in the entire contract. Then we're going to be able to parse through the sentences later. So next thing I went ahead and did is I just opened up a document. This is a new Word doc that I'm creating that it will provide a contract overview that will eventually contain all the obligations of each party. So now we go back to that party list, and I went ahead and I broke up my contract overview between the two parties. So first, it will give a list of all the obligations that you have, and then it will give you a list of all the obligations your employer has. I went ahead and stripped any trailing space, either before or after the word, the party name as input by the user, and I save that into the list itself as well. And this little area, just make sure that the party actually exists in the contract. So if I were to misspell Dunder Mifflin, for example, this is going to not let me move on in the code until I spell it right as contained in the contract. Or the user can go ahead and type end if they just want to exit the code completely. To go ahead and, that's in case they want to see what the actual party name is, maybe they got it wrong, etc. So, assuming that the parties are actually all contained in the contract, it will create a list, just this initializes an empty list for each party of all the obligations that they have. And this line here goes ahead and adds a title that says the obligations and benefits of the party's name. So here's really the core of how the code goes in and identifies those contract words. So this is for every sentence in the entire contract. And then we're going to have a nested loop of every word in our list of contract words. Again, so we're just going to replace, if they're all these as they're read in from the text file, they're going to have a new line character. I'm just going ahead and stripping that off. And then I'm using a method in the regex native Python package called .search. If an instance is found in the .search, it will return a match object. So I'm just basically saying if this is true, then we're going to output the sentence to the output list. The output list will represent all the sentences in the entire contract that includes some sort of obligation or benefit afforded to you in the contract. So this is the text that it's searching for. It is searching for the name of the party, followed by any amount of white space, followed by the contract word. So this could be you shall, employee must, company complies, etc. And I'm going to go ahead. I found it's always better in regex just to go ahead and ignore the sentence or the letter case. Just helps you identify more possible obligations or benefits. So that's going to go through for every word and for every party, any instance, any combination of that party title and those words. The next thing I do is sometimes you could have instances where it identifies multiple obligations, same sentence twice, etc. This is just going to go ahead and drop any duplicates in that output list. And now it's an output set, so a set's a little bit different from a list. It's going to go ahead and add a new paragraph to our output document containing all the obligations of each party. And finally, what I just went ahead and threw in was if you were to type the name of a party that somehow is found in the contract, but there are no explicit obligations found through this, it will just output the word none. And then it saves it to contract overview. So once you go ahead and run that, it should go ahead and output something that looks like this, contract overview. Now, I went through and wrote this contract. I put in some things that wouldn't really be in a normal contract, so let's see if we can find some. Again, I put in you as the party name, so this was written in third person, so sometimes the grammar gets a little bit funny here, but you agrees and covenants that during his or her employment for Dunder Mifflin and for a period of 100 years following the termination of you's employment, whether such termination is voluntary or involuntary, you will not directly or indirectly engage or do business with the following competitors, etc. So what what we were able to identify here is a non-compete clause that binds you for 100 years. That might not be something that you would want to do. Um, there are several of these. If you find any that you think are interesting, go ahead and enter them in the comments below. I'd love to hear what contractual obligations you were able to find either in this contract or maybe put through your own contract. I hope you can go through my solution and see any ways that you can improve it, make it better. I'd love to hear your input, your comments. Again, my code's not perfect, but it's something that I'll definitely be using in the future as I enter into more contracts. And one of the best things is there are softwares that can do this online, but this is free. So again, if you're going through and updating my code or somebody else's, maybe we can build a free open source version of this that's almost as good as some of those that you'll find on the internet. Thanks so much for hopping onto this challenge, and good luck with your new work at Dunder Mifflin.